Hi, I'm Manda McKay. I'm a professional artist, and I'm making these videos to help enhance your creativity with one tip per video. And whether you're experienced at your creative practice or just starting out, these tips are meant to help everybody. So I want you to ask yourself, do most of your ideas and most of your finished work, is most of it terrible? And if so, I want you to understand that that is most likely a good thing, and I'm going to talk about why. I've made a number of videos about what basically boils down to being the fear of failure, where I think so many people stifle their creativity by censoring themselves because they're basically afraid of coming up with something stupid. And I get that to a degree if other people have to see the ideas. If I'm in a group brainstorming session, I will keep stuff to myself. But part of enhancing your creativity and getting better as an artist or a hobbyist is coming up with a lot of ideas and doing a lot of work. And if you can do these where nobody else can see your ideas or your work until you're ready, until you feel like you have something good that you want people to see, that is going to help you a lot. Because then if you know that this is only you're going to see these ideas that you're coming up with, then hopefully you'll be a lot less concerned about coming up with stupid ideas. Because really, if you're coming up with tons and tons of ideas, just by the odds are at least a lot of them, not necessarily most of them, but a lot of them are probably going to be bad and unusable, although they may lead to something really good later on. But especially if you're just starting out at something, and especially if you're coming up with lots and lots of ideas, the odds are a lot of them are going to be bad. And you have to push through that and keep going, even if it seems like you're just on a streak where just everything, everything that you're coming up with just doesn't seem to work. You've got to keep going because it's a growth process, and the more that you can practice, the better you will get. The more you do this, you will get better at it. And I talk about the importance of keeping some kind of an ideas notebook where you can jot down your ideas. And I do this all the time. And even if it's a really terrible idea that basically embarrasses me because it's so bad, I will still write it down. And I don't expect anybody to ever look at these. Sometimes I think like, well, if somebody ever steals my purse, they can have a field day looking at my ideas notebook and some of the stupid stuff in there, and some of the bad thumbnail drawings that I do. But I don't let that stop me. Hopefully nobody will ever steal my purse. And I just write down any idea that that I come up with, because I have to go through a lot of bad ones often to get to a good one. And this also applies to finished artwork. I'm predominantly an oil painter, and I come up with ideas for paintings, and a lot of them I don't use because I think that the ideas are just bad and they're not going to work. But every so often I think it's a good idea and I turn it into a painting and it doesn't come out like I want it to. And sometimes I actually basically have the painting finished before I realize that. And I've been painting for a long, long time, and I'm fairly advanced at it at this point. And I still will have at least a couple paintings a year that are just bad and that I don't show anybody. And if I'm lucky, I figure this out early in the painting process and say oh, this is not going to work for whatever reason. But every so often I do the entire painting and then I realize, okay, this is why this painting is not successful. And I put a lot of time and effort into it, but that's the only way to get better. You're probably not going to come up with really good finished results or ideas if you're not just working at it and working at it as much as you can and a lot. And that's just part of learning and getting better at it. And even if you've been doing it for a long time, like I said, you're still going to come up with really bad ideas and bad work. And the trick is just to not let that stop you and don't let that slow you down. And in a previous video, I talked about a friend that I had back in high school and college, and I have lost touch with him a long time ago. But, you know, we were teenagers, and he really, really wanted to be a songwriter. He was a pretty good guitarist, but he really wanted to write his own songs. And this was something very important to him, but he just refused to ever write a song because he didn't want to do it until he could write, like, the greatest song ever. And even as a teenager, I just was blown away, because how can you possibly get better at something if you're not practicing it? I mean, you're going to have to write probably a bunch of terrible songs before you can write a good one, because it's a skill and you have to learn it. And I remember having a conversation with him about that, but he just wouldn't budge. And I mean, I don't know who he was trying to impress except for himself. But I mean, you got to cut yourself some slack, especially if you're just starting out. Of course, the first song you ever write is not going to be the best ever, is it? I mean, the odds of that are extremely low. And like I said, I lost touch with him, but 10 years after this, 10 years after we were having these conversations, he still hadn't written any songs. And, at this point he was in his late 20s, and it still was something important to him. And again, I tried to tell him, you're just going to have to write some songs, and they're going to be bad to start with, and then eventually you'll be able to write something good. And I just could never convince him. And I hope that at some point he changed his mind about that. Again, I lost touch with him a long time ago, so I don't know how he's doing now. But this was something very, very important to him, and he just never let himself get started with it because he was just so embarrassed by the thought of that he wasn't just genius just right off the bat with his first attempt. So please do not let that be you. Don't let this fear of failure stop you. Even if you're having like what you would consider a really bad streak where it seems like everything that you're working on, like every idea and everything that you actually try to execute, that it's bad, don't let that stop you, and just keep going with it. And eventually you'll start to have some good ideas and some good results, and you can get better and better, but only if you're practicing and only if you're willing to have these, these bad ideas and bad finished pieces even. That's the only way you're going to get better. So just keep going. And again, my name is Manda McKay, and I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe. Tell me in the comments below if you've had any experience with this. I'd love to hear from you. And thank you again for watching.